People, welcome back to episode 36 of the Grappling Growth podcast with me, Joe Story. On today's podcast, I was joined by Luis Evitt, who is the founder of Social 90, a marketing agency, and he also runs a mentorship called Agency Architecture. I came across Luis probably about a year ago, and what I loved about him is that I could tell he's being real, he's being himself, he's being, as the word that we use in this podcast, authentic. Luis was a professional rugby player and he literally smashed his knee. So he stopped playing rugby about 7 years ago. From there, he then started his agency and has built it up to be quite a successful agency. Throughout the podcast, we don't just talk about business, we kind of scratch below the surface. We introduce a bit of philosophy, talk a lot about sport, training, jiu-jitsu. We're both into jiu-jitsu. He actually also holds a brown belt in judo, so he's a bit of a weapon and has trained a bit of Muay Thai in the past. Luis gives invaluable advice to anyone, especially youngsters who are looking to find their way in business. Ultimately, you want to be authentic, you want to lead with value, and you want to be able to turn around and help people. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe, share it to a friend. We're here to grow the community and provide as much value as possible. Take care and thank you all.
As entrepreneurs, we all experience challenges in our business journey. I'm Joe Story, and the Grappling Growth podcast is my attempt at documenting my entrepreneurial journey while building my brands. I sit down with fellow entrepreneurs, understanding how they grapple with growth. I hope you find value and enjoy.
Luis, man, pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Cheers, Joe. Great to be here, mate. Really appreciate the invite and excited to get into things today.
So my opening question to you is, what does growth look like to Luis?
I think growth looks very different for a lot of different people. I think you really have to relate it to what your aspirations are within life, and the targets that you want to achieve. Growth for me is essentially being in one place, setting a target, and then moving in between point A to point B to hit that target. Growth you have to look at is in so many different aspects of life, health, wealth, relationships. I think if you can hit like 2 out of 3 of those markers and be bettering oneself, then that's brilliant. If you can hit like 3 out of 3, then that's obviously like the holy grail.
And so for you in your life, how do you look at hitting 2 out of the 3 or 3 out of the 3?
I'm a massive believer in routine. I was speaking to someone a little bit about this the other day, so I'll mention it again because I really like the saying. For so long, I was searching for, I was watching all these inspirational videos on YouTube, like, these Stoke videos about motivation. And actually, I deduced that I'm actually not that, I'll speak very honestly, I'm not that of a motivated person. But I was thinking to myself, well, I still get up every day. I still get my gym done, still get my work done, still providing results for my clients, but I'm not that motivated to do that. So what is that? And actually deduced it down to that's discipline. I think you just have to be a disciplined person to achieve your goals in life and grow from one point to another. So often I think successful people are mistaken for being super motivated. Maybe you feel this yourself with your agency and other things. It's not necessarily the most fulfilling or motivating things to do at times is agency work, but we just do it because we're disciplined and we get results from it, and the results essentially in turn make us money, allows us to live a better life, allows us to spend that money on things that help us grow and enjoy life and grow as individuals, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I see those points. From there, what do you think as a root cause has made you a disciplined person?
I really, all throughout school, very, very different. I think the average person or any of my friends at school, there's a couple who I really synergize with to this point in life. But I think for me, always very different. I always just wanted to excel. I was never really keen to go down that traditional route of work and uni to work and working in a corporate job. I always sort of wanted to do my own thing. I knew that obviously to do that comes with a number of risks, not necessarily being financially stable, especially from 19 years old, running your own business, having to support yourself. but I really, really wanted to be different. I really wanted to spend my time how I wanted to spend my time. And I think that's what sort of pushed me into going down this route, if that makes sense.
I think that's the case for a lot of guys who get into the online space and who are entrepreneurs from a very early age. I quit my job in the city, which was it was a very comfortable, potentially six-figure job, but I just thought I'd rather try and fail than never try and never know. Is there anything that you can pinpoint back to your childhood? So if we go to the root of discipline, that you think made you quote unquote different?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I always pin this back to my like sporting background, which is what I've spoken a lot about before on sort of other online content. And for me, I was playing in the Rugby Academy from when I was like 15 years old. I moved away from home when I was 15. And even to that point, from like 12, 13 years old, when you're starting to get picked up by like, you know, professional environments, you have to be hugely disciplined to make it to into an academy, into a professional level of sport, no matter what that level of sport is. And I always attribute a lot of my work ethic, the way I am, the way that I deal with people, with clients in social situations, to my sporting background. From a really young age, I genuinely think that athletes in particular have a massive head start in life, and getting involved from a high level of sport at a young age. I think it grows and develops them as people, and gives quite a wider array of talents. You'll know this with your jiu-jitsu. I'm actually just in the process of starting a company with a Premiership rugby player and another business partner of mine who runs an agency for rugby players. So like a talent acquisition agency, but this will be a recruitment company just for ex-athletes for after sport, because employers really love ex-athletes. They've got a good set of morals, good compass, you know, everything like that. But that's, I suppose, if I was to able to attribute it to anything, would be the sort of the singular answer.
That's cool, because quite often when you talk to people, when they attribute why they are the way they are today, it's normally traumas that come up as opposed to the experience with training and athletics. And I guess my question to you is, let's say someone isn't an athlete right now. Let's say there's a lad in his mid-20s who he is looking to start his own thing. Do you think an elite athletic mindset to work can be applied, or sorry, can be taught further on in life? Or do you think it's something that is best taught, well, it is best taught younger, but once you have it at a young age, that's the foundation?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it 100% can be taught. I think from a younger age, you just having, as I said, I use this phrase, head start. I think that anyone can be taught something as long as they're open to being taught. We normally are the way that we are, as you said. I'm a massive believer in trauma makes you a certain way, and I've definitely also had my fair share of that in my younger career, which we can talk about if you want. But
Yeah, please go.
you're either so basically, I blew out my knee when I was 19. This was at the end of my sort of professional rugby career, and that's when I started my first business. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. I always joke that I played as much Call of Duty as I could. I was just bored. I just needed to do something. Needed to, you know, work, your mind is a muscle. Needed to work my mind, and that's when I actually started my first business. That's what prompted me to start my first business. But look, if you're a 20-year-old guy who, you know, at the moment you're thinking that you're a bit destined for more maybe, or you're eager for more, I think that can definitely be taught. But the key is you have to be open to being taught and open to learning and open to education. So many, if we were to use this demographic of like a mid 20-year-old male, predisposed leaders, predisposed to thinking they're right all the time, load of testosterone flowing through the system, not that teachable. And if we were to attribute it back to like the athlete comparison, it's all very well and good being like the best rugby player in the park or the best the best roller in the gym. But if you're not actually coachable as an individual, that skill set goes to waste. So you actually have to be coachable. That 25-year-old that we use as an example has to be coachable and has to be willing to learn. I think that's the real key to actually being able to transition.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, and I think there's a term that we use in our gym, which is just so simple, which is be humble. And I heard Joe Rogan and Israel Adesanya talking about this on a podcast a couple of days ago, and Izzy was saying how that you've got guys in the gym who are just absolute savages, but when they go in to compete, maybe in a comp or in a fight, they don't have that. And I guess it's there's just such a paradox between performing and training. And some people, like there's a guy in my gym, he's an absolute tank. He's a brown belt, and he just never wants to perform or compete. He's competed once, and he's very happy at that level. And I think that the points that you've made, I would put athletes in the same caliber as people who have served in the army, because I think moral compass, disciplined, they're there to get shit done. And one thing that I can't stand amongst a lot of 20-something-year-olds, as you said, is it's like there's this entitlement amongst a lot of people where they believe that they deserve extra days off, and this is something that I heard and I spoke to a friend about. I was like, I don't agree with this, but I heard these two girls on the tube in London about a month ago talking about taking a yellow day, and I kind of put two and two together. Are you familiar with the term yellow day?
No, mate. But again, I'm not from that London environment, so I'm keen to hear what it is there.
So, a yellow day, and I had to ChatGPT this because I couldn't remember the color, but I was like the color and then backwards inducted it. Essentially, it's a day that some companies have elected to give to employees that they have a quota, maybe 2 or 3 days a year, that if they're not feeling their best self, if they want to work on their mental health, outside of their holiday, they can take a yellow day. And it's kind of like, and I heard what the girl was saying, she's like, yeah, I'm taking yellow day on Tuesday. I'm just going to do the cleaning that I haven't done and tidy up a few things and water the plants and just go on a walk, go for a coffee. And the other girl was like imploring her. She was like, yeah, it's such a great thing. That's so good. And I just thought 100 years ago, we just finished a war, or even 70 years ago, there was no such thing as yellow days. You're in the trenches or you're in war. Life is so much easier now than it was 100 years ago. And I think the way how people are being preconditioned is just allowing them to just become soft. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, mate. I mean, I suppose we need to be careful to not get into like too politically, but I would totally agree. I think that, you've got this, I don't want to sound too whatever, but like steel sharpens steel. And I think that for me, you are really a product of your environment. I would also say if you feel like you need to have a day off for your mental health, then you need to actually look at the environment that you're in as opposed to actually, just thinking that it's all right to sweep it under the carpet.
Prevention's better than cure.
Exactly. Prevention is better than cure. And I think that in honesty, mate, has not made its way to the Midlands where I'm from at the moment. As far as I know, I think that's a very like London thing. But that's just because of obviously you look where you are. There's so many different sorts of people, different demographics of people from all walks of life there. And I think that any adoption of any woke culture is always in London first. I agree. I think something like mental health is super, super important. It's something that I feel personally very passionately about helping. And it's something that I've seen people who I care about struggle with and family, friends, that sort of thing. However, like you said, prevention is better than cure. And when does the line stop with that sort of thing? Where do you draw the line, I suppose? Does 3 days turn into 5 days a year, and then 5 days turns into 10 days a year, and then all of a sudden you have a month off for, mental health?
Yeah, and I think to your point, I'm an advocate for mental health, and I myself, I've seen a therapist, and my mum's a therapist, so I know that there's a lot of people struggling with things that a lot of the time you can't contextualize. Where I find it quite comical, so to speak, is the way how they were talking about it and glorifying this yellow day to tell me that they were going to go do some gardening and fix their pots. And I just think I myself, they fit well into one culture, but that is not the culture that I want to build within my team and my organization. And I think that there's sometimes, and I was talking to a friend who I do jiu-jitsu with, there's two types of suffering. You've got chosen suffering and you've got unchosen suffering. You blowing out your knee, that's unchosen suffering. You can't control anything there. And then we've got way more traumatic experiences that happen in life. And generally the rule of thumb is that you have 5 traumas in your life. But I believe that the more times you can look for chosen suffering, i.e. training really hard, going to jiu-jitsu, and just putting yourself in uncomfortable positions, it makes it easier and it makes you more adapt. So when real things happen that you can't control, you're more ready for it.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And I think this actually comes down to a society of sort of over-diagnosing stuff, and creating this victim mentality. I actually think that it's really, really dangerous in the society we live in at the moment, because I think that so often people self-diagnose. Just because you're feeling sad doesn't mean that you're depressed. Just because you're having an off day doesn't mean that you shouldn't go to work. Just because you're feeling angry or upset doesn't mean that you need a day off work. And I think that actually disrespects people who are really suffering with real issues. It almost devalues that, if that makes sense, and makes a bit of a mockery of it. And look, I imagine that our views are very, very of a different wing to someone who would agree with the yellow day. I also think you've got an issue with larger corporate entities adopting stuff like this just to tick boxes, which I get. I know that, I know they have to do, but I think that is ultimately a product of the world that we live in. You'll really like this phrase. It's this Greek phrase called eudaimonia, and it actually means enjoy the struggle. And I can't remember who said it. It was Plato or Aristotle or something like that. And basically the process of the struggle and putting yourself in dark situations actually develops you into a better, more well-rounded person, and the struggle is more enjoyable than the end result. And I think sometimes we live in quite a soft culture where we're not used to being in the locker. We're not used to enjoying the struggle. We just want all the glory, all the fame, all the end result, but we're not willing to get in the dark places to put the work in. And especially running your own business, mate, you're going to be put in some dark places. When you're running your agency, mate, especially if you're an owner operator, there's no yellow days for you. If you take a yellow day, mate, you're not getting paid. And that's the way I look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, talking about mental health, I talk quite openly about this, but I'd say I was in Australia March, April last year, and I mentioned to you that I had a really bad back injury. I was out of jiu-jitsu for 16 months, and to the point where it wasn't even, I couldn't run, but even opening my gate while I was walking, I was in pain. While I was sleeping, I was in pain. Just basic life functions were there. And I remember feeling pretty low. I could barely do a kilometer run. I was just in absolute agony. And I feel that now, and even when I'm at the gym or whatever I'm doing, I'm just so much more cautious. I make sure I do 15 minutes of mobility before I start whatever training I do. And I think I've just got a new level of gratitude for whatever I'm able to do. But I know for a fact that if I didn't go through that whole experience, my ego would have been way higher than it is now. And everyone's got an ego at the end of the day, and that's what we need to survive. Sometimes we can inflate our ego and think we're better than what we are, but that struggle, as you said, is the fun part. It's when you look back 10 years later, you think, shit, if I didn't get that knee injury in rugby, I'm sure there's a big part of you that wishes you went on to become a professional rugby player, but fucking wouldn't have the business you have today and be able to do what you do.
100%, mate. And look, this is something I've spoken quite a lot about before, and something, people always ask me, oh, if I could wind back the time and change the situation and not have gone into that ruck where I blew out my knee, would I? And obviously at the time I would have been like, yeah, want to be a professional rugby player. It's all I wanted to do. But again, like you said, looking back now, mate, it was for the best. When I was lying in that bed, as I said, with a brace on, not able to walk, staring at the ceiling, that was literally my rock bottom. As you think you said, like 5 traumas in your life. I reckon I've been through my fair share of trauma. But like, I know that nothing that can happen to me is worse than getting my professional contract ripped up, blown out my knee, not being able to walk properly for like a year and a bit. Seeing my mum and dad, how that affected them. One of the worst things I never used to think about it was I was like the victim. I was like, oh, so bad on me, whatever. But imagine seeing your mum and dad who had ferried you to every rugby session, every training match, for the past 8 years, and then how passionate they were about me and my life in sport, and then seeing them not be able to see me do that. All these are like not amazing things, sorry, all these terrible things. That was my rock bottom, and I just think now nothing that you can put in front of me will ever be worse than that. That is like my base level, like for terribleness, I suppose, if that's even a word. So yeah, I mean, that's just, I think that people, like you said, just don't get in the locker enough, mate.
I appreciate you sharing that. And similar to Goggins, he uses the term the cookie jar, and it's just
Yeah,
when you go into that cookie jar and just, I find it, if you're doing a really heavy workout or you're up late at night, and because we've all had it where you've got a client who is saying if results don't improve in the next month, they're going to cancel their contract, and you're there and you're just thinking, fuck. And I think everyone suffers from anxiety to an extent where you're thinking, shit, I really, really need to do this. And then there are the times where you absolutely pull it out. And I don't even think it's the case of pulling out, because I've had clients who, by the end of the month, they've left, and that's what happens. And that is the reality of business. But I always know that when that client leaves, if I've done the best job I can do with my team, I'm okay with that, because my best is not good enough for their expectations. And that's what I think a lot of business comes down to, is expectations is key.
yeah. I think there's sort of a few traits that every successful entrepreneur founder has, not even like agency owner. And no matter what business you look at, I'm pretty certain that they all have these sorts of qualities. My advice would be, first things first is you have to actually do it. I know it sounds really, really simple, but for that, when I was lying in that bed, I probably spent a month thinking about doing something, getting something going. Like, I suppose there's that paralysis by perfection. Like, I wanted it to be perfect. Want to just go out and do it. Like, just start, make a start, in whatever capacity that is, whether it's posting every day on every single social media, which costs nothing, or trying to sell to your first client, or trying to strategize what your business is going to look like on paper. Just start. If you've got that, I can really, really encourage you, if you're watching this now and listening to us, just start. The key is just starting. I know it sounds so simple, but such an easy waypoint to achieve. My second piece of advice is owning the business is shit. Like, there is everyone online, anything you see online about business owners is always in a positive light. It's always, look at my Instagram, for example. You see me on the nice boats. You see me with the nice cars. You see me doing nice experiences with cool people, but you don't see all of the shit that comes with that. There is obviously like peaks and troughs with everything, and owning a business is really, really hard, and your character will be tested. The relationships around you will be tested. I've lost a lot of friends as a result of running for my business, because they don't align with the way that I want to live my life and the goals that I want to achieve, and they can't add value to my life. And I'm a big believer and surround yourself with the right people, which I'll give that advice in a minute. But yeah, owning a business is super, super hard. You have to be prepared to get in the trenches, and you have to be resilient and strong enough to grind that out. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. The more pressure and stress you deal with, the better you'll get at coping with it. Hard times make for strong people, is what I always say. My third piece and final advice, which is arguably the most important one, which I just sort of touched upon there, is you have to surround yourself with the right people. In my early business years, it is so much harder to build a business and a successful one if you don't have the right people around you. You want to hang around with fountains, not drains. It's like when a strawberry starts to rot in the box, all the other strawberries around it will start rotting. That's not to say you cut people out, but you really have to have a look at your friendship group, your partner, even family, and think, are they adding to my life in a positive way? If not, then you have to be really, really ruthless, and I think cut them out. I did that. It doesn't sound nice when I say it out loud, but I can genuinely say that my life has actually long-term benefited. You have to sometimes sacrifice the short term for the long term, has benefited because of it. I have a very small group of like close friends. I have a lot of acquaintances and a lot of people I'm friendly with, but I have a very, very small group of close friends who I trust implicitly. If I feel I can't call you at 3 o'clock in the morning, you'd be there, you're not my friend. And that would be sort of, I suppose, the final advice.
Very strong and profound. And the context of the point of the people around you, there's multiple studies, and I spoke about this before, but it's known as your reference group. So the 5 people you spend the most amount of time with. And the 2 biggest determinants of how successful you will be comes down to your postcode and then your reference group. And I think exactly to what you said. I remember I was working in a sales job in central London back end of 2018. I actually got sacked from that job, which is a very funny story. But in between that time, my dad's a builder. I worked with him for a bit, and I was figuring out: do I want to take this business full time or not? But I wouldn't even say I put 1 foot in the water. I probably put 2 toes in the water and it's so fucking embarrassing when I look back at it. But it's like I finished uni, got a master's, and then I started hanging around with 2 guys who I grew up with. And for a very long time, my parents would say, so-and-so is not good for you. But I would feel this loyalty because these were friends since literally one of the friends, we're born 9 days apart. And then the other guy I've known since I was 10. So I always felt this loyalty towards them. But you'd see the way how you'd act in the sense of you would pick up some cans of beer at 8 o'clock in the evening on a Tuesday and go for a fucking walk until 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. When I look back at myself, and the thing is, it's not even one of those things that I'm ashamed of, because unless I did those things, I would not be where I am today. And where I am today is still away from the man who I really want to become. But if everything just clicked for me instantly, I had to go through that little rut for about 2 months. And then I went into another job in the city. And then after that, I stopped doing any of those activities because I knew waking up at 10 o'clock in the morning, just rolling out of bed, being lethargic, that is not the person that I wanted to be. And I think probably the best advice that we could give right now to anyone young who's listening is pick your friends wisely, because as you said, they can either be fountains, which I like that term, or they can be drains on who you are. But on from that, I have seen that you've got an agency and you've started a coaching business, and I've been following it quite loosely. So could you delve into what was the prompt behind the coaching business? And I listened to one of your videos which was saying this program is for you if you're looking to get to say 3 to 5k a month. If you're looking to build a really complex business, then no. But talk to me about that, because I'm always excited behind guys who are looking to coach people coming into the space.
Yeah. I suppose, where do we start? So I've been running my agency for now like 5, 6 years. And one of my pet hates with info products, in particular, because that's what it is, it's an info product, is where people are practicing something, but they're not preaching it. So the whole point is I'm still running my agency. I'm actively running my agency. For my target audience, I've been exactly where they are in their position. The The course is designed to get you to an extra 2 to 3K per month. If you want to get to 10, 20, 30K per month, I'm sure there's courses out there that you can go and do that with. Don't go and buy my course because it won't teach you how to do that. And I also think fundamentally you have to get to earning 2 to 3K a month and learn the systems, processes, and acquisition process before you can earn 10, 20, 30K a month or whatever. I've been there and done it. Coaching people, I wouldn't class myself as a coach actually. I think there's actually a difference between sort of like coaching and mentoring and that sort of thing. I would like to think that I'm more of like a mentor. And I definitely think there's a difference. I can't coach people how to run a marketing agency because ultimately everyone's going to do something a little bit different. What I can do is pass on the learnings that I've done, give them all the information, and then they do the implementation. That's what I like to look at it as. The community is called Agency Architecture, and it's on School. A learning process in itself for me. I've never hosted a info product community before. I've definitely made some mistakes already. The community is completely free of charge to join. I'm posting 2 to 3 times a day in there. I'm hosting a Q&A after our call today, which is again completely free of charge. There's a free module of my course on there, and the full course you can buy if you want. But the idea of the course is just super, super simple, super straightforward. It's not 20 or 30 hours of content. I think it's like 5 in total, but it has very clear and concise actionable tasks after each lesson, and then actionable projects at the end of each phase. It works in a chronological and easy to follow order. So essentially, module 1, complete this task, this task, this task, complete this project, module 2, so on and so forth. And from the start to the end of it, if you follow it through, you should have your the starts of your own agency. And in terms of like customer, it can be complete beginners, someone who wants to, as I said, show an extra 2 to 3K per month, using your agency as a vessel for that. Freelancers who are already in a certain niche, like SEO, ads, social media management, and want to scale up. Or to be honest with you, I actually think the average business owner could apply it to their own businesses in-house marketing. Little smaller size businesses that are just starting up. That's the community. If you want to go join it, I'm sure Joe will paste the link in the description. Do me a solid.
Amazing, man. And I think you look at the market leaders in the spaces nowadays when it comes down to information education, the Hormozis. If you think about how long it took Alex Hormozi to actually ask for a buy, I mean, the book launch for $100 million, was it leads or sales? I can't even remember what it was called out of the two, but with that, he waited so long, and I'm of the same nature. I'm building out a community as well on School as well, and I think I'm choosing School over any other platform. I've got a client who's building a community. Well, we're building a community out together on a platform called Buddy Boss, and it's not my pick, but I think because how much value Alex Hormozi's given to the marketplace, I feel indebted to him to then go and buy his product. And I think from what I've seen with other clients that I'm building school communities out with, it is fantastic. And I think another point I wanted to make is I really admire the fact that you're showing people what you did. So you're saying, I did this and you can do this. You're not coming as, and this is where I think there's a dichotomy with a lot of people. They come on this perch where they say, this is what you should do. But they're not actually just saying, hey, look, this is what I did. It might work for you, it might not work for you. As long as you do the work, it probably will, because that's where I think you can flip the narrative. And it's like, hey, look, there's no guarantee here. There's no crazy call. I did this. I was able to get to 10, 20K a month. If you follow this, you should be able to get to a tenth of that.
Yeah, mate, I totally agree. And as I said, one of my main things is not just teaching people how to make money, but teaching people not how to not lose it. If I can highlight all of the mistakes that I made along the way, which I do within my course and I do within the advice that I give, then I think that's a really powerful thing. I'm a big believer of make mistakes, be positive, and like almost welcome mistakes with open arms, make them while the cost is low as opposed to when the cost is high. My agency has done some amazing things and has really given me some amazing opportunities, to travel, as I said, to meet people, to do things that your average person wouldn't be doing. And all I'm trying to teach people is if they implement it in the right way, like I did, but they can obviously do it in a shorter amount of time with the learnings that I'm trying to pass on to them, they can live a relatively good life. I think I live a life of, what would the word be that I'd use to summarize it? Like, I don't know. Abundance is the word that I always joke about with my friends. Like, I feel really abundant in my life at the moment. I'm not saying that I'm earning like £1 million a month, like some of these online gurus out there and that sort of thing. I earn good money. I have a really good relationship with my family. I have a great relationship with my girlfriend. I have some really great friends. And genuinely, that has all stemmed as partly like to do with my agency and my business.
Yeah, I think you've touched upon a point that I realised a couple of years ago. I was fixated on hitting £1 million a year. That's all I focused on, and that isn't the focus now. And I think a lot of my wants have changed through because of my health, because of having a serious back injury, and so to kind of expand upon that, I aggravated my back initially when I was 19, so the same age as you when you hurt your knee, and that took me 10 months to recover. So it was the exact same back injury, happened this time 2 years ago, September 2022, and literally all the way through till January this year. And I think I realized, and the more you speak to people who don't have their health, all they want is their health. And I think you realize who's there for you, what you actually need. And I guess that's looking at Maslow's hierarchy of need. That there's a lot of people who they would live an insane life if they were making 10 grand take home a month, and they could, as you said, live a life of abundance, as opposed to, because generally, if you're running a business that's doing £1 million a year, there's probably exponentially more interdependencies and complexities involved in that business to run it. And I've seen, and I'm sure you have, I've seen the back end operations of a fair few multi-million-pound businesses, and the CEOs, the founders, they've aged in a year what you should age in 3 to 5 years. They're consistently stressed, and you can just see they've just broken as people. And I think there's too much of a precedence on money, money, money. And I think the balance should be on what you spoke about: 3 pillars: health, wealth, and relationships. And if you couldn't scratch 2 of those 3, if you can get 3 of those 3, that's a far happier life for me.
Yeah, you're on for a good life, and I always say this phrase. One of my favorite phrases. It's new levels, new devils, and it's like the more money you're earning, the more money you have, the more problems that come with it. Like more money, more problems, and yeah, mate, I think that that is quite a young alpha mindset. Is like, I just want to earn as much as possible every single. Of course, we all want to earn as much money as possible, but actually, when you take a step back in terms of like perception versus perspective, it's a lot better to have less hassle. There's a cost for the less. There's obviously a sacrifice for the less hassle. But yeah, that's all what agency architecture is about. Is just teaching people that. And look, if I can teach people how to earn an extra 2 to 3K per month, then they can get that passive income to go and pay for the course that's going to teach them to get to 10, 20K per month. Maybe I'll do the how to get to 10K a month course at one point. Not on my horizon at the moment, not something I feel too passionately about. I think there's enough people out there trying to hit that sort of target audience. But yeah, you've hit the nail on the head, mate. I think that's just, again, the society that we live in and sort of the culture that we're brought up with, I suppose. Have to have security, earn as much money a month. Just, yeah, live your life and enjoy it. That's what it's all about.
It is. And I've seen a lot of shift amongst these online gurus away from, oh, you just got to be dog, got to wake up at this time every day and just work hard to. You see a lot of these guys. It's really the case of don't do as I say, do as I do. Because a lot of these guys who are selling you stuff, and this is when I started building out my coaching program last year, everyone teaches you
this is cold outreach and this is what you got to do to grow your business. But most of these guys posting on YouTube, posting on Instagram, showing lifestyle-esque reels, and that's what they're doing. And that's probably what's driving or moving the needle in actuality. So, Lewis, you've delivered quite a few quotes and ones that I'm going to listen back to this podcast and make notes of, because I love Stoicism and the Stoic quotes. So I'm sure you've got 3 amazing book recommendations for me in the realms of business, and let's throw in philosophy if you've got any there that you'd care to share.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Put me on the spot here. So 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. That was just more attributed to what we're speaking about, just you know, time versus what you're earning and that sort of thing. So 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. Second one is which I would say the subtle art of not giving a fuck. That really changed my life. All about, if you can actually just not give a fuck about people's opinions, you become unfuckwithable, which is something I'm really working on and something I think I've got a lot better at. This, I think, read this before, if you're in a position that you haven't started your business yet, read this before starting your business, and your growth will be parabolic. That's number 2. Number 3, I will also do a notable recommendation at the end, but not within my top 3. Number 3, I would say Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think that's just a bit of a classic. I think that once you read that, again, will change your perspective on money and how the world works in attributed to money. The notable recommendations, we already sort of mentioned it, but Arthur Moses, $100 million sales, $100 million leads. I'm not saying that they just are going to give you all the stoicism, all the wisdom, everything to do with how to run a business. But I do think that there is a load of knowledge and a load of value in there that you can implement to help scale in particular. Not necessarily run a business, but scale in particular. Total transparency, I'm not a big reader, but they're sort of the ones that stick out sort of in my head.
Nice. Yeah. Rich Dad Poor Dad has come up a few times recently. 4-Hour Work Week, the subtle art of not giving a fuck hasn't actually, but I know of the book, so a solid one. And from there, and we always do this on the podcast, I've taken a question from the online space. Now, you've got 10 odd thousand followers on Instagram, you're building up your profiles, and I think one thing that I always respected and appreciated about you, you've got some fucking cool video edits, man. You do some cool stuff with your videographer. So that's definitely something. I'm actually doing a vlog today, which I'm off to France later. So I'm taking a few snippets off from what you've said. So I've got a question from someone off Reddit, which reads, fellow entrepreneur said, how would you go about building your personal brand today?
Yeah. Okay. So a personal brand, I think, has shifted over in the last 2 years in particular. Just be yourself, be honest and transparent with the messages that you're trying to relay within your social medias and personal brand. For so long, I got caught up in that web of trying to be someone who I wasn't, trying to, thinking that having the coolest car was like the in thing and posting about it all the time on social media. I bought my dream car when I was 19. Now, because I really love cars are like one of my interests, but now I don't really care what I drive. And like I used to post all the time about it on social media, but it wasn't really authentic to me. I didn't actually buy that car for anyone else. I bought it because I loved that car, but yet I seem to need to tell people about it all the time. So I'd say be really authentic and really transparent in the messages that you're trying to deliver. Secondary to that, the message that you're delivering needs to speak to a very specific audience. You need to find out what that audience is and who you want to speak to, and speak directly to them, whatever the niche is, whatever the industry is, whatever the type or demographic of person is. That's what your content needs to be positioned towards. Thirdly, I think you need to offer free advice and value, Hormozy style, which we've touched upon today. The biggest mistake young bucks in particular make is just trying to sell, or their content be positioned to sell and churn people into the top of the funnel. Just be authentic with the message that you're trying to deliver and offer that free value and advice for someone who can genuinely make changes to their life or business and help them do that, the business and income will follow. I generally find that. And then finally, just don't take yourself too seriously. Just because you're earning a load of money online doesn't mean that you can't have a laugh while you're doing it and can't, show people a bit of personality. Posting about me having a beer on the weekend with my friends. You'll catch me making an idiot of myself dancing on the table in a beach bar in Ibiza. I'm just, at heart, I am a rugby lad, I suppose is the phrase, and that will always be a big part of me. And no matter how much money I earn or how many YouTube videos I make of, so I am just a normal person. And that's something that I'm really keen to translate in my personal brand. And I think that's why they connect with me on my personal brand is because of that, and why people, reach out to me a lot for advice and help, because I think I'm quite relatable. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I think, maybe.
Definitely wrong on that one. No, I'm joking. I think that was one of the big reasons as to why I wanted to bring you onto the podcast, because look, everyone's got a different personality. And I think a big thing that one of my clients, who is amazing, she's a fantastic coach, been a corporate coach for years, she talks about authenticity all the time. And I think just being pure to yourself, no one can replicate Lewis, no one can replicate Joe. Being yourself. If you're a fucking idiot day in, day out, maybe people don't want to be seen to be gravitating towards that. But showing you've actually got personality behind your brand, it is a personal brand. It is the brand of you, echoed, exemplified. It's like a WWE wrestler going out, like Stone Cold. He was just the antithesis. Sorry, he was the personification of him just blown up. So that was really cool. Lewis, I know you've got a meeting to shoot off to. Where can people find you?
So at the Luis Evitt, LUISEVITT on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, or X, depending on how old you are, and LinkedIn. And then you can find my school community through thisisagencyarchitecture.com. Put a link in, Joe. But yeah, feel free to connect with me. Ask me any questions about foundership, entrepreneurship, agency. I will never, ever ignore a message in my inbox, ever. And you can hold me accountable for that. It's been great. I think we had different conversation today than the conversations I'm used to having on podcasts and features. It felt very pure and like quite visceral. And hopefully people enjoy listening to us and me and didn't find me too boring. So yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, Joe.
Well, thank you for coming on. It was a pleasure.
Cool, mate. Listen to Grappling Growth every Wednesday, 6 p.m. I don't know if that's when it's coming out, but either way, listen to it. Subscribe, like, comment.